Our Formula E Special Week continues with a track used in 2016 and 2016 only. In Germany, Formula E has long been associated with the Tempelhof Airport. It's been the one consistent feature on the Formula E calendar since its existence, and whilst it has been used in multiple different configurations over the years, thanks to the unsurprising feature airports of loads of space, the same basic location has been used for 8 of Formula E's 9 seasons, and will also feature in Season 10 as well. Now, 1 year was missing though, didn't mean that Formula E had abandoned Germany or even Berlin. Tempelhof Airport was turned into a refugee centre in 2016, which meant that a new area of Berlin would have to be used. And you could argue that the location that they went to certainly brought the racing closer to the city centre. The track was called the Karl Marx Allee Circuit. It was a mere 1.26 miles / 2.03 kilometres in length. It had 11 corners, with 6 going to the left and 5 going to the right. However, whilst those figures may indicate a fairly typical street circuit, it does somewhat mask the rather simplistic nature and layout of the circuit. Although, it's better that I demonstrate this to you by going over it in a bit more detail. Down the longest flat-out section on the track, as you head to turn 1, you're greeted with an exceptionally tight hairpin. There's nothing much else to say about this corner really from a profile perspective. It's just a fairly sharp hairpin, albeit not quite as sharp as the one in Hong Kong. It was one of the better opportunities on the circuit to attempt an overtake, perhaps unsurprisingly. However, the main highlight of this section is that if you decide you don't want to turn left and go straight on, you'll enter a very long pit lane. There was the odd close call as drivers who wanted to enter the pits avoided the ones that didn't, but if you wanted work done on your car, or indeed a new car altogether, then you'd have to go round a fairly tight double apexed hairpin before arriving at your team garage. The blend back onto the track though is fairly smooth, to be fair. It's then down the opposite side of the road where you're met with, well, this chicane. A chicane that can be seen from this viewing area. Whether this was meant to be a viewing area or not, I don't know, but irrespective of whether it was or wasn't, if you're afraid of heights or suffer from vertigo, then this spot is not one I'd recommend if they came back here. Anyway, the chicane itself does seem somewhat out of place. If you removed it, you'd probably be able to make a fantastic right-hander. Instead, it's 2 quick flicks of the steering wheel, initially to the left and then to the right. Some important things to note with the chicane are how perhaps it's not the best idea to clip the curb with a damaged front wing, that it's also easy to spin on power coming out of it, and that it wasn't a nice time to be a bollard.
Can people stop crashing into me for Pete's sake? I have feelings as well, you know.
After the chicane is a fairly fast right-hander where the track width dramatically tightens on the exit. It's then down a reasonably long straight before a heavy braking zone that could promote good overtaking chances brings you to turns 5 and 6. Although in truth, it's basically a double apex left-hand hairpin, utilising 2 90-degree corners. Oh, you were just desperately waiting for me to say that term, weren't you? Stay as close to the right-hand side as possible, crossing over a bicycle lane as you do so, and get as close to those strange curbs as possible, without actually touching them. Just beyond the exit of turn 6, the road begins to stretch widthwise, and that means you can use the extra track width to your advantage through the turns 7, 8, 9 complex. I could talk about each corner individually, but in reality, this selection of bends combined together just creates half of a roundabout. A fairly fast right-hander immediately precedes a much slower, seemingly never-ending left-hander that is quite bumpy on the inside line, before taking the second exit on your way to turn 10. A hairpin which, whilst not all that fast, with how amazing the steering lock is on these Formula E cars, is not all that challenging either. Then, to finish it all off, it's round the turn 11 right-hander, which, thanks to the low entry speed, can be taken flat out, and being flat out is all you need to do to round off a lap of the Karl Marx Allee Circuit. The other thing that I thought I'd highlight before talking about why this track only hosted one race was the unique way in which cars formed into their grid positions. In Formula E, there's very rarely a formation lap. Normally just do a burnout, and then start. This was a bit different in that the grid presentation was on the straight coming out of turn 1 for some reason, but to get to the start-finish straight where they'd line up in their grid positions, they use an opening in the barriers to go from one straight to the other. Not the usual thing to have happen, but then this is a Formula E track we're talking about here. Now this circuit was a one and done affair, as you know. However, it did seem as though the track would potentially be used for a second year. Ultimately though, they would return to Tempelhof Airport for the following season. Any people who bought tickets for the initially planned Karl Marx Alley circuit would then be given an automatic invitation to the race at Tempelhof Airport. And not only that, but they'd be given Category 1 grandstand seating, as well as a special pit walk on the day of the race. So assuming you were in a position to do so, and that the change of location wasn't an inconvenience to you, then it seemed like a good replacement. As circuits go though, I feel like this one is one of the most forgotten street tracks that has ever existed. I think that's partly down to how Formula E's association with Tempelhof is quite well known amongst the Electric Series' fanbase, but also partly down to the track itself being rather forgetful. There's nothing wrong with it per se, but it just seems rather plain. No fast sweeping sections, no huge changes in elevation. In fact, if you boiled it down and were, in my opinion, unfairly harsh with this track's layout, then you could say that it's basically 3 exits of a roundabout, with 3 hairpins looping you back round to the roundabout. I wouldn't say it's a terrible layout, but it's just not all that interesting, and I'm quite glad that they stuck with Tempelhof Airport, to be honest. However, that is going to be it for this episode. Thank you very much for watching, as always. If you have any other street tracks that you'd like to see featured in this series, then say down in the comment section. Also, if you did enjoy this video, then I'd be incredibly appreciative if you did hit the like and subscribe buttons. In the meantime though, until the next video, be kind to each other and enjoy the rest of your day.